Hi friends, today we will do GMAT sentence correction. Sentence correction is part of GMAT verbal. Verbal has 35 questions which you answer in 65 minutes. There are 3 verbal sections. 1. Sentence correction. You have 8 to 9 questions. 2. Critical reasoning. You have 13 to 14 questions. 3. Reading comprehension. 13 to 14 questions. Here is a GMAT sentence correction sample question. Please have a glance. Please pause the video and try to answer the question. Follow the directions and choose one of the best options. This sentence correction has 6 grammar topics. 1. Subject-verb agreement. 2. Parallelism. 3. Comparisons. 4. Pronouns. 5. Modifiers. 6. Verb tenses. In this video, I will explain the first topic of sentence correction, that is subject-verb agreement. Subject-verb agreement. This is the most important topic in GMAT sentence correction. Many grammar concepts which are useful for sentence correction will be covered in this topic. These concepts are essential for a sound foundation of sentence correction. A detailed explanation of many concepts and rules, along with their application to official GMAT questions, has been given in this video. Please watch from the beginning till end for a good understanding of sentence correction, the subject-verb agreement topic. Subject-verb agreement subtopics. Under this topic, we will cover the meaning of the subject, types of subjects, modifiers as middlemen, subordinators, the number of versus a number of, each and every rules, collective nouns, verb subject order, or, either or, neither nor, either, any, neither, none. In addition, I will explain a couple of official GMAT sentence correction questions which are related to the subject-verb agreement. The meaning of the subject. Subject. The subject is a noun, pronoun, phrase, or clause that performs an action. For example, the Republican spokesman Bob Stevenson turned down the offer extended by the leader of opposition. In this sentence, the subject is Bob Stevenson and the verb is turn down. And the subject, Bob, performs the action, that is turn down. Verb. The verb is the action that the subject performs. In the sentence above, the subject is Bob Stevenson and the verb is turn down. Please identify the subject and the verb in the following sentences. Many banks have increased the interest rates on business loans. Next week, the government will present its budget for the next financial year. You have identified the subjects and the verbs. In the first sentence, the subject is many banks and the action or the verb is have increased. And in the second sentence, the subject is the garment and the verb is will present. Types of subjects. We may classify the subject into 4 types. 1. Nouns as the subject. 2. Pronouns as the subject. 3. Phrase as the subject. 4. Clause as the subject. Noun as the subject. Nouns are naming words. For example, India, Gandhi, mother, pet, all these are nouns. Jakir protested that he had been misquoted and misrepresented. In this sentence, Jakir is the subject. John Wycliffe translated the Bible into English. In this sentence, the subject is John. Both Jakir and John are nouns. Nouns are used as the subjects. Now, pronoun as the subject. Pronouns are substitutes of nouns. He, she, it, they, etc. are pronouns. Look at the example. They served in the army for about 15 years. In this sentence, they is the subject and they is a pronoun. Now, let us look at phrases as the subjects. What is a phrase? A phrase is a word group without a verb. Examples of phrases. The laptop on the desk is a group of words, and this word group doesn't have any verb. Thus, any word group that has no verb is called phrase. Some more examples. Foreign direct investment in the retail sector, relocating business from metro cities to countryside. All these are phrases. Please note, usually we use a singular verb if the subject is a phrase. Now, observe this example. The proliferation of nuclear weapons since their production in the 1940s is a major concern for the world community. In this sentence, the subject is the proliferation of nuclear weapons and the verb is. Let us look at one more sentence. The translation of the Bible into several languages was initiated in the 4th century. In this sentence, the subject is the translation of the Bible into several languages and the verb is was initiated. You can notice that in both the sentences, the subject is a phrase and the verb is singular. Now let us see the clauses as the subjects. What is a clause? A clause is a word group with a verb. How is the clause different from the phrase? What is common between phrases and the clauses? Both phrases and clauses are word groups. However, a clause has a verb which the phrase doesn't. So this is the major difference between the clause and the phrase. Look at the examples. How kites are made. People who have participated in the event. Operations that are successful. In all these word groups, the underlined words are verbs. Thus, these are clauses. You could also use clauses as the subjects. For example, where the war prisoners were held captive was a mystery. The subject in this sentence is where the war prisoners were held captive, and the verb is was. If I ask you what was a mystery, then you would say where the war prisoners were held captive. Let us see one more sentence. How the public money is spent has to be explained to the public. What is the subject in this sentence? In this sentence, the subject is how the public money is spent. This is a clause. What is the verb? The verb is has to be explained. What has to be explained? That is how the public money is spent. Note, usually we use a singular verb if the subject is a clause. Now, what is common between this phrase and clause? Both phrases and clauses are word groups. Both phrases and clauses can function as the subject of the verb. And when phrases or clauses are used as the subject, the verb is usually singular. This is an important point to note. Now, let us discuss one more subtopic in subject-verb agreement, that is modifiers as middlemen. What is a modifier? A modifier is a word or a word group that describes the subject or gives some information about the subject. Read the following sentence. The Sun Temple, which is situated in the Bay of Bengal coastline, was built in 1250 AD. In this sentence, the subject is the Sun Temple and the modifier is which is situated in the Bay of Bengal coastline. This modifier describes the subject, that is the Sun Temple, and gives some information about it. Note, sometimes a modifier hides the subject by intervening or by coming between the subject and the verb. Hence, sometimes the modifiers are called middlemen, intervening phrases, or sandwich phrases. Often, the GMAT test makers make the sentences too complex by placing many modifiers between the subject and the verb. Hence, to identify the subject, you need to ignore the middleman or eliminate the middleman, no matter how many middlemen are there in the sentence. A very important point to note here is, after you eliminate all the middlemen from the sentence, a subject and a verb must remain. Also, the subject and the verb, when read together, must make sense. In this example, that is, the Sun Temple, which is situated in the Bay of Bengal coastline, was built in 1250 AD. After we eliminate the modifier, the sentence reads as, the Sun Temple was built in 1250 AD. This sentence is both grammatically right and meaningful after we remove all the middlemen. Now let me explain you the types of modifiers. Modifiers that act as middlemen include 1. Prepositional phrases, 2. Relative clauses, 3. Present participial phrases, 4. Past participial phrases, 5. Additive phrases, 6. Non-essential modifiers. Now let us discuss these modifiers one by one. Prepositional phrases. What is a prepositional phrase? A phrase that begins with a preposition is a prepositional phrase. You already know what a phrase is. A phrase is a word group without a verb. Now look at the list of prepositions. after, against, around, across, between, before, behind, by, beneath, down, from, for, in, inside, into, like, near, on, over, outside, toward, through, under, with, within, without, etc. Of course, you have a very long list of prepositions. You can Google the complete list of prepositions, but for GMAT, I'm sure this list is useful. Now, examples of prepositional phrases. After school, by James Cameron, in a week, over 2 centuries, under any circumstances, from home, at the store, with her family, in front of the gate, between the 2 countries, on the marble floor, etc. Note: a noun that is in a prepositional phrase cannot be the subject of the sentence. Look at this official GMAT sentence. In a review of 2000 studies of human behavior that date back to the 1940s, 2 Swiss psychologists declared that since most of the studies had failed to control for variables such as social class and family size, none could be taken seriously. In this sentence, the modifiers prepositional phrases are in a review of 2000 studies and of human behavior. And there is also another modifier, that is a relative clause, that date back to the 1940s. Shortly we will be discussing the relative clauses also. Well, in this sentence, what is the subject? The subject is 2 Swiss psychologists and the verb is declared. If I read the sentence after eliminating all the modifiers, does it make sense? It does. How does the sentence read after I eliminate the modifiers? 2 Swiss psychologists declared that since most of the studies had failed to control for variables such as social class and family size, none could be taken seriously. It makes sense. This is how you must evaluate the subject-verb agreement sentences. You must eliminate all the middlemen and the read sentence and see whether it makes sense. What is a relative clause? A relative clause begins with a relative pronoun. Then what is a relative pronoun? The pronouns, namely who, whom, whose, which, where, when, that, etc. are called relative pronouns. I will explain pronouns in a separate session in detail. So what is a relative clause? A relative clause, a clause that begins with a relative pronoun, is a relative clause. I'm sure now you can easily identify a relative clause. And a relative clause functions as a modifier or a middleman. You must eliminate all the relative clauses from a sentence to identify the subject and the verb. Let us look at this example. The day when I decided to quit smoking is the most memorable day for me. In this sentence, the modifier is a relative clause. That is, when I decided to quit smoking. Now let us look at one more sentence. Motorola, which is the first company to produce a handheld mobile phone, has a long history of innovation. In this sentence, the modifier relative clause is which is the first company to produce a handheld mobile phone. The subject is Motorola and the verb is has. After I eliminate the middleman, that is relative clause, the sentence reads like this. Motorola has a long history of innovation. This sentence is grammatically right and makes sense. Let us look at one more example. Unlike gold, which is primarily used for making ornaments, silver is used in dental alloys, solder and brazing alloys, electrical contacts, and batteries. What is the modifier in this sentence? The modifier which is primarily used for making ornaments. And the subject is? The subject is silver. What about unlike gold? Unlike gold is a prepositional phrase. Like and unlike are prepositions. Participial phrases. There are two types of participial phrases which function as modifiers or middlemen. 1. The present participial phrase. 2. The past participial phrase. The present participial phrase. A present participial phrase begins with a present participle. What is a present participle? It is the ing form of the verb. For example, watching, using, combining, driving, etc. are present participles. Examples of present participial phrases: using latest technology, rivaling pyramids of Egypt, combining enormous physical strength with higher intelligence, etc. Look at the following examples. Using the artificial intelligence, the Human Resources Department screened over 1 million job applications in a week. In this sentence, the participial phrase using the artificial intelligence is the modifier. It modifies the subject, the Human Resources Department, and the verb is screened. In the second sentence, combining enormous physical strength with higher intelligence, the Neanderthals appear to have been equipped for facing any obstacle the environment could put in their path. In this sentence, the present participial phrase combining enormous physical strength with their higher intelligence describes the subject, the Neanderthals, and the verb is appear. Next, past participial phrases. What is a past participle? It is the third form of the verb. For example, done, made, initiated, seen, taken, broken, etc. The past participial phrase begins with a past participle. Examples of past participial phrases include made in India, initiated on Columbus Day, scattered all over the world, etc. Look at the following examples. Found only in the Western Hemisphere, hummingbirds survive through extremes of climate. In this example, the past participial phrase found only in the Western Hemisphere functions as the modifier, which describes the subject hummingbirds. Now look at one more sentence. Surpassed only by disease and cancer is the past participle modifier, which modifies the subject diabetes. Look at this sentence. In this sentence, we notice two modifiers that surround the subject. The first modifier is past participial phrase, that is, scattered all over the world. And the second modifier is a relative clause, that is, who are the original inhabitants of Israel. Two modifiers, namely a past participial phrase and a relative clause, modify the subject, the Jews. I read the sentence after eliminating the modifiers. After I eliminate the modifiers, the sentence reads like this. The Jews have settled in foreign lands as merchants, which makes sense. An important note, the preposition plus a noun, a relative pronoun plus a verb plus noun, a participle plus a noun, an adjective plus noun, it implies this noun cannot be the subject of the verb. Now, please pause the video and try this question. Apply the modifier techniques. Identify the modifiers. Eliminate all the modifiers. Then see whether the subject and the verb agree with each other in number, whether they make sense together. Approach to GMAT sentence correction questions. Begin from the options. When solving GMAT sentence correction questions, never begin to read the sentence. Reading will just burn your time. Hence, start from the options. First, look for common elements in two or more options. Then, group the options on the basis of the common elements. And look for grammar markers. What is a grammar marker? Almost every sentence has one or other grammar error, exception being the correct sentence. It is possible to identify the type of the grammar error present in the given sentence, whether it is a subject-verb agreement error, a verb tense error, or some other error. The answer choices have clues that suggest the type of the grammar error the sentence is likely to have. These clues are called grammar markers. Now, let me explain you how to apply these techniques to the official GMAT sentence correction question. I group these options on the basis of some common verbs. Options A and B have singular verbs, hence they become one group. Options C, D, E have plural verbs, hence they become another group. Thus, we group the options on the basis of some common elements. They could be verbs, nouns, or some other elements. Note, if the options of a sentence correction question are grouped on the basis of singular versus plural nouns or verbs, then it is a subject-verb agreement question. In other words, if some options have singular verbs or nouns and the remaining options have plural verbs or nouns, then it is a subject-verb agreement question. If some options have singular verbs and other plural verbs, then you must look for the subject in the given sentence. On the other hand, if some options have singular nouns and the remaining options have plural nouns, then you should look for the verb in the sentence. The options A and B have singular verbs and C, D and E have plural verbs. Now we'll look for the subject in the given sentence. In this sentence, the middleman or the modifier is when the great painted caves at Lascaux and Altamira were occupied by Upper Paleolithic period. So I eliminate the middleman. That is, it is a relative clause. After eliminating the middleman, I see a singular subject, that is the period, and a singular verb, that is has been. Hence, we eliminate three options C, D and E because they have plural verbs. Now we are left with only two options, A and B. We resplit these two, or we look for the differences between A and B. Usually the differences lie either in the beginning or at the end of the options. However, sometimes you could see the differences or common elements in the middle of the options. So you should always look for the common elements or the differences in the beginning or at the end or in the middle of the options. Now I see that the last word in option A is are, and the last word in option B is. Again, a singular and a plural verb. Also, both the options have a conjunction but or a parallel marker. That means after but there is another subject, or the subject in the second part of the sentence is what is much more difficult to determine. This is a clause. The second part of the sentence has a subject which is a clause. I have already told you that if a phrase or a clause functions as the subject, then the verb must be singular. Hence, option A is eliminated and option B is the best option. Now, I want you to read the whole sentence. If you read the sentence by replacing the underlined part by option B, then it makes sense. Now please try one more question the way I have done. Now I explain this question. As I told you, I have already told you that you should always take the clues from the beginning and the closing words of the options. If you can't group the options on the basis of the words present in the beginning or at the end of the options, then look for the clues in the middle of the options. I see that options A and B have the plural verb suggest, and the options C, D and E have the singular verb suggests. Please note, if we add yes or es to the verb, then the verb turns singular. Speak is a plural verb and speaks is a singular verb. Similarly, do is a plural verb and does is a singular verb. Now, let us look for the subject in the given sentence. I have already told you, the moment you understand that it is a subject-verb agreement question, then you identify the middlemen and eliminate them. After eliminating the middlemen, you must match the subject with its verb. Match the verb with its subject and make sure that they agree in number and they make sense when read together. I see two prepositional phrases in the sentence after the subject, namely in the Commerce Department's index and of leading economic indicators. After I eliminate these two middlemen, then I see the subject, that is the rise, a singular subject, and I see a verb, that is suggest, which is plural. Since the subject is the rise, singular, the verb has to be singular. Now let us eliminate the options which have plural verbs. Options A and B have the plural verb suggest, hence they are eliminated. Only options C, D and E, which have singular verb suggests, remain. Now we need to regroup these three options. What does regrouping mean? Regrouping means resplitting the remaining options. The remaining options on the basis of similarities and differences among them. The way we have grouped 5 options, in the same way we regroup or resplit the remaining 3 options. We could regroup the options. We can make C and E one group on the basis of the similarity between them. Will continue, which is future tense. Option D has is continuing, which is the present tense. However, the adverb coming months indicates that the verb must be in future tense. Hence, option D is eliminated. Finally, we'll look for the differences between the remaining options, namely option C and option E. The major difference is option C has continue its expanding and option E has continue to expand. I'm sure you know that continue its expanding is not idiomatic, in the sense it is not standard English, hence it is eliminated. Also, this option has an unnecessary that after the parallel marker or the conjunction but. There are 2 reasons to eliminate option C. In option E, we see the phrase continue to expand, which is idiomatic. Hence, option E is the best option. If you are looking for online or offline GRE, GMAT, SAT or IBPS classes, please write to us at info.hyderabadhub@gmail.com. You can also call us at 844-855-7665. Thank you. Thanks for watching our channel. I am going to post the second video, the second lesson on subject-verb agreement very soon. Please subscribe to our channel and press the notification bell so that you get notified as soon as I post the new video. Thanks for watching.